I died as an Illuminati insider, and what Jesus revealed to me in those 8 minutes will shatter everything you think you know about the battle for your soul. My name is Dr. Marcus Ashford, molecular biologist, British Nigerian, Oxford educated. For 15 years, I was part of the secret society most dismiss as conspiracy theory. I never believed in supernatural forces. I worshipped data and empirical evidence, demons, primitive superstition for the weak-minded. But everything shattered in a single moment. In 2009, I was recruited at a biotechnology conference in Geneva. A well-dressed man approached me after my keynote on gene editing. He represented a consortium of the world's most brilliant minds. The offer was intoxicating. Private research funding, cutting-edge laboratories, Nobel laureates. I just had to join their circle. I thought I was joining the vanguard of human evolution. I had no idea I was being weaponized. The initiation was elaborate. Robes, ancient symbols, oaths in Latin. I rationalized it as harmless ceremony. But looking back, I see the truth. Every gesture opened spiritual doors I didn't know existed. They were inviting something in, and I, in my arrogance, thought it was just pageantry. For years, I climbed their ranks. I published research that nudged public health policy to serve their interests. I consulted for pharmaceutical companies whose products created dependencies, not cures. I felt occasional pangs of conscience, but I silenced those doubts with logic. Progress requires pragmatism. Then came October 17th, 2023. I was working late in the lab, synthesizing a cognitive enhancement compound with troubling side effects. The ventilation system malfunctioned. Within seconds, I inhaled concentrated neurotoxic aerosol. My vision fractured into kaleidoscope fragments. My legs buckled. I collapsed, cheeks slamming against cold tile, lungs screaming for air that wouldn't come. I tried to call for help, but my vocal cords were frozen. My heartbeat stuttered, slowed, stopped, and then silence. Death was mundane from the inside. Just gradual dimming, like theater lights going down. But what came next was anything but mundane. I stood in absolute darkness. Not absence of light-active darkness, pressing against me like water, suffocating alive. I could still think, still feel terror clawing at my consciousness. But I had no body to scream with, no lungs to breathe. Where was I? Was this oblivion? Was this the end? Then I saw it, a pinpoint of light in the infinite void, growing, rushing toward me with impossible speed. The light wasn't just bright, it was alive, warm, pulling me forward with magnetic force. As I drew closer, the darkness didn't fade. It fled. And I entered a space that obliterated every category my scientific mind had ever constructed. And there, in the center of that impossible light, was Jesus. I knew immediately who he was, though I'd spent my life dismissing his existence. Not the sanitized European Jesus of Renaissance paintings. This was a presence of absolute authority and unconditional love, existing simultaneously. His eyes met mine, and in that gaze I saw everything. Every lie I'd told myself. Every moment I chose pride over compassion. Every time I used my intellect to elevate myself and diminish others. I wanted to hide, but there was nowhere to go. He spoke, and his voice wasn't sound, it was truth, materializing directly in my consciousness. Not English, not any human language. Pure meaning that bypassed my ears and resonated in the core of my being. Marcus, I'm going to show you what you unknowingly served. I'm going to reveal the 7 instructions Beelzebub gives to his demonic ranks to steal, kill, and destroy the children I love. You were a weapon in a war you didn't believe existed, but your eyes are about to be opened. I tried to speak, but he held up a hand. And there, in the center of that impossible light, was Jesus. I knew immediately who he was, though I'd spent my life dismissing his existence. Not the sanitized European Jesus of Renaissance paintings. This was a presence of absolute authority and unconditional love, existing simultaneously. His eyes met mine, and in that gaze I saw everything. Every lie I'd told myself. Every moment I chose pride over compassion. Every time I used my intellect to elevate myself and diminish others. I wanted to hide, but there was nowhere to go. He spoke, And his voice wasn't sound, it was truth, materializing directly in my consciousness. Not English, not any human language. Pure meaning that bypassed my ears and resonated in the core of my being. Marcus, I'm going to show you what you unknowingly served. I'm going to reveal the 7 instructions Beelzebub gives to his demonic ranks to steal, kill, and destroy the children I love. You were a weapon in a war you didn't believe existed. But your eyes are about to be opened. I tried to speak, but he held up a hand. First, understand how they used you. The enemy's strategies are ancient, but they evolve. In your time, they weaponized what you worshipped, intellect. Suddenly, the scene shifted. I was back in that Geneva conference room, watching my younger self shake hands with the recruiter. But now I could see what I couldn't see then. Behind the man stood a shadow, a presence of malice so concentrated it made the air shimmer. The shadow whispered to the recruiter's ear, and I heard it. Make them worship intellect over intuition. Convince them the mind is the highest truth, and anything unmeasurable is primitive delusion. Separate them from spiritual discernment. Make them so proud they become blind to the spirit realm. When they trust only what they can prove, they become easy to deceive. I watched my younger self preen under the praise, chest puffing with pride. I saw the trap being set. I saw myself walk into it willingly. Jesus turned to me, his expression filled with sorrow and determination. This is instruction 1, Marcus. Pride in intellect is Beelzebub's favorite doorway because it makes people feel superior while enslaving them. The enemy convinces the smart ones that faith is for the weak-minded. But true wisdom begins with humility before God. When you elevate your mind above my spirit, you cut yourself off from the very source of truth you seek. The revelation hit me like a blow. My entire identity was built on this. I'd looked down on people of faith as inferior. I'd dismissed prayer as self-soothing. I'd believed enlightenment came through knowledge, not spiritual surrender. And I'd been blind. How do people resist this? I asked. By recognizing I created both mind and spirit to work together. True intelligence bows before divine wisdom. When your viewers recognize this tactic in their education systems, media, workplaces, they can break free. They can stop worshiping human intellect and start accessing the mind of Christ. The scene shifted again. I watched a montage of my life after joining the society. Family dinners where I barely participated. Friendships withering because I'd grown too important. My ex-wife's face, as I told her the society required full commitment, that relationships held me back. And behind every moment of isolation, that shadow whispered to different people, orchestrating my loneliness like a conductor. Instruction 2, Jesus said, his voice carrying ancient sadness. Isolate them from authentic community. Beelzebub knows my power flows strongest when my people connect in genuine love. So he works to separate, to divide, to convince people they're better off alone, too special for ordinary relationships or too broken to be accepted. I saw it clearly. The society made me feel elite, chosen, but it wasn't real community, it was transactional. Everyone using everyone else, climbing invisible ladders. No vulnerability. Just performance and competition dressed as collaboration. The enemy uses different tactics, Jesus continued. For you, it was elitism. You were too smart for normal friendships. For others, it's shame. They're convinced their wounds make them unworthy. For some, it's busyness. The method varies, but the goal is the same. Isolated believers are vulnerable believers. Disconnected people are easier to deceive, discourage, destroy. How do we fight this? I asked desperately. By choosing connection over comfort. By being willing to be known, truly known, despite the risk. My kingdom is built on genuine relationship, Marcus. Not networking. Real community where people carry each other's burdens, confess struggles without fear, celebrate victories without envy. When your viewers recognize how the enemy has isolated them, they can choose to reach out, to connect, to join believers who will help them stand strong. The scenes kept coming, each more painful. The scenes kept coming, each more painful. I saw moments of moral compromise, times when I knew what I was doing was wrong, but did it anyway. I saw growing darkness in my eyes over the years, the way my smile became calculated, my words manipulative. And through it all, that shadow whispered the same lie in 1,000 variations. You've gone too far. You've done too much. You're too corrupted to be forgiven. God might save others, but not you. You're beyond redemption. The only path forward is to go deeper, because turning back isn't an option. Jesus stepped closer, and I felt tears streaming down a face I no longer possessed. Instruction 3, Marcus. This is perhaps the cruelest of Beelzebub's strategies. Convince them their sins are too great for forgiveness. Make them believe they've crossed a line my blood can't cover. Create such despair that they stop seeking mercy and resign themselves to destruction. His hand reached out, and though I felt utterly unworthy, he took mine. But here's the truth that destroys this lie. There is no sin greater than my sacrifice. There is no darkness deeper than my light can penetrate. There is no person too far gone for my love to reach. The enemy wants people paralyzed by guilt, convinced their past disqualifies them from my future. But I came precisely for the ones who think they're beyond saving. I collapsed the weight of grace too heavy. I don't deserve this, I whispered. None of my children do, he said gently. That's what makes it grace. The moment you recognize you need it, you can receive it. But the enemy will fight to keep people trapped in that lie. When your viewers understand this tactic, when they realize that no matter what they've done, I'm still here with open arms, everything changes. Shame loses its power. Despair is defeated. People who thought they were finished discover they're actually just beginning. I looked up at him and felt something breaking open inside me. For the first time in decades, I felt hope, real hope. Not artificial optimism manufactured through achievement, but genuine hope that comes from being fully known and still fully loved. There's more, isn't there? I asked. Jesus nodded, his expression growing more serious. There are 4 more instructions. The 4th one is the darkest, Marcus. It's the one that nearly broke me when I walked the earth in human form. But you need to know. The world needs to know. Because only when people understand how the enemy operates can they recognize his tactics and stand firm. He paused, letting the weight settle over me. But first, understand something. I'm not showing you this to burden you with guilt. I'm showing you this to set you free, and through your testimony, to set others free. Every person watching needs to know they've been targeted, that there's a very real enemy with very real strategies designed to steal their purpose, kill their faith, and destroy their destiny. This isn't abstract theology. This is practical spiritual warfare happening right now in their lives. The light around us began to pulse, as if preparing for the next revelation. I felt simultaneously terrified and grateful. Terrified of what I was about to see, but grateful that someone cared enough to show me the truth, no matter how painful. Are you ready? Jesus asked. I took a breath I didn't technically need and nodded. Show me everything. And at that moment, standing in the presence of pure love, I felt something shift inside me. The 3rd instruction had revealed how they manufacture despair, how they weaponize hopelessness to make us give up on the very God who created us. But Jesus wasn't finished. His revelation was just beginning. His eyes held a depth of compassion I'd never experienced in all my years serving the enemy. Marcus, he said, and hearing my name from his lips felt like coming home after a lifetime of wandering in darkness. The enemy wants you to believe lies. Let me show you the rest of his playbook. Then the scene shifted. The light around us pulsed, and suddenly I was standing in a vault of golden brilliance. Not heaven's gold, this was counterfeit cold, hollow. The 4th instruction materialized in the air, burning with dark fire. And the moment I read it, 20 years of my life suddenly made horrible, perfect sense. Instruction number 4, redirect their worship toward material power. I felt physically sick, not because the words were shocking, but because I'd lived this lie for 2 decades. You see, when I joined the Illuminati, they promised enlightenment. They promised ancient wisdom. They spoke eloquently about transcendence and awakening. But every single ritual, every ceremony, every secret gathering had one true object of worship, power itself. We didn't bow before altars of stone. We bowed before bank accounts. We prostrated ourselves before influence, before control, before the intoxicating rush of having what others couldn't have. The rituals were elaborate distractions from the simple, brutal truth that we were worshipping created things instead of the Creator. And it was working. I'd seen it in my own life, watching my soul shrivel while my portfolio expanded. I'd measured my worth in publications, in research grants, in the envious looks from colleagues. I'd sold my humanity for letters after my name and invitations to exclusive conferences. Jesus' voice cut through my shame. Marcus, true treasure is stored in heaven, not in earthly vaults. The enemy makes you chase shadows, while eternity waits. Then the vault vanished, and what I witnessed next changed everything I thought I understood about modern life. I was thrust into 1,000 lives at once, stockbrokers worshipping numbers on screens, influencers kneeling before follower counts, pastors building empires in God's name. I saw it. I saw how this instruction plays out across modern culture. The obsession with success porn, with hustle culture, with the gospel of manifestation and abundance that sounds spiritual, but leads people to worship their bank balances instead of their Creator. The demonic forces don't care if you call it the law of attraction or prosperity theology or the grind mindset. As long as your heart bows to material gain, you're fulfilling their agenda. I began to weep. How many people have I influenced with this poison? But before I could spiral into guilt, everything shifted again. The fifth instruction appeared like smoke solidifying into words, and this one explained the confusion I'd felt even within the Illuminati itself. Instruction number 5, blur the lines between good and evil. Yes, Jesus said, as if reading my thoughts. You felt it, didn't you? The cognitive dissonance. They taught you that truth is relative, that morality is constructed, that right and wrong are simply power dynamics to be exploited. I nodded, remembering the philosophical discussions in darkened rooms, the way senior members would speak eloquently about transcending conventional morality. They called it enlightenment. They called it higher consciousness. But what they were really doing was erasing the distinction between light and darkness until everything became an indistinguishable gray. And I saw how brilliantly evil this strategy was. Because once you convince someone there's no absolute truth, they become malleable. They can be led anywhere. They'll justify anything. I'd watched it happen in my own ethics as a scientist, the way I'd slowly rationalized experiments I once would have found unconscionable. Your truth, my truth, live your truth. The phrases that sounded so liberating were actually chains. Because if everything is relative, then nothing matters. If there's no fixed point of reference, we're all just floating in moral chaos, easily manipulated by whoever holds power. Jesus' voice was both gentle and absolute. I am the way, the truth, and the life, not a truth. Not one option among many. The truth, fixed, eternal, unchangeable. In that moment, I felt something inside me that had been spinning for years finally settle, like a compass finding true north after decades of magnetic interference. There was relief in absolutes. There was freedom in surrendering to truth that existed outside my own perception. But even with this clarity, one question remained. How does the enemy keep people from seeking this truth? Then in a blink, everything changed. The eternal realm dissolved into chaos. 1,000 screens flickering at once, notifications exploding like fireworks, an infinite scroll of faces and voices and noise. The sixth instruction blazed across this digital storm, and when I read it, I recognized modern existence itself staring back at me. Instruction number 6, numb them with endless distractions. I almost laughed, because this wasn't some ancient strategy. This was the air we breathe now. The constant notifications, the infinite scroll, the binge watching and doom scrolling, and the desperate need to fill every silent moment with noise, with content, with anything to avoid being alone with our thoughts. The Illuminati didn't invent distraction, Jesus explained, but they've mastered weaponizing it. Every technology, every entertainment platform, every addiction cycle serves the same purpose. Keep humanity too busy, too tired, too overstimulated to seek me. I saw it all at once. The way I'd filled my life with prestigious busyness, important meetings, critical research, networking events. I'd been so distracted by the tyranny of the urgent that I'd never stopped to consider the eternal. And it wasn't just me. I saw how this instruction was being executed on a massive scale. People scrolling through their lives, their attention span shattered, their capacity for deep thought eroded by the constant barrage of information and entertainment. Spiritual apathy wasn't the absence of religion. It was the presence of too many things that promised fulfillment but delivered only emptiness. Jesus' words were like water in a desert I hadn't known I was wandering through. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest, true peace, the kind the world cannot give and cannot take away. I felt tears streaming down my face, because in that moment I realized I'd been exhausted for decades. The kind of bone-deep weariness that no vacation could fix, no achievement could satisfy. I'd been running on empty, fueled by adrenaline and pride, never stopping long enough to admit I was dying inside. But then the chaos stopped. Dead silence. The screens vanished. I stood alone with Jesus in absolute stillness, and his expression changed, became more serious, more urgent, as if we'd finally arrived at the heart of everything. What he was about to reveal would expose the enemy's deepest secret. Marcus, there's one more instruction, the most important one, the one that all the others serve. Now the light around us grew so bright it should have been blinding, but instead it revealed. Instruction number 7 appeared, written in letters that seemed to pulse with the weight of all human history, and the moment I read it, I understood. Everything. Every lie. Every ritual, every manipulation, it all made terrible, perfect sense. Instruction number 7, keep them ignorant of their divine identity. This, Jesus said, his voice carrying the weight of eternity, is what the enemy fears most, that you would remember who you really are. And then he showed me. The light exploded outward, and I saw it all humanity as God created us, radiant, magnificent, made in his image, crowned with glory and honor, designed for relationship with the divine, destined for eternity, co-heirs with Christ, children of the Most High God. The vision was so beautiful it broke me. And beneath it all, I saw the enemy's entire strategy exposed like a skeleton beneath rotting flesh. The enemy's entire strategy was built on one simple goal: make us forget. Make us think we're just biological accidents, cosmic flukes, meaningless arrangements of atoms destined for oblivion. Make us believe we're defined by our worst moments, our failures, our shame. Make us so focused on our brokenness that we never look up and see the inheritance waiting for us. Because if we remembered our divine identity, if we truly understood that we're loved beyond measure by the Creator of the universe, if we grasped that we're not slaves but sons and daughters, not condemned but cherished, not worthless but priceless, the entire demonic system would collapse. Every ritual I'd participated in, every dark teaching I'd absorbed, every lie I'd been told in the Illuminati had the same ultimate goal: keep Marcus Ashford from knowing he was beloved. Keep him small, keep him powerless, keep him unaware that the God of the universe calls him son. I fell to my knees, overwhelmed. All of it. It was all to hide this one truth. Jesus knelt beside me, his hand on my shoulder. Yes, because once you know who you are in me, the enemy has no power over you. You can't be manipulated by lies when you know the truth. You can't be enslaved by fear when you know you're loved. You can't be distracted by worthless things when you understand your divine purpose. He looked at me with such intensity, such love, such absolute certainty. Marcus, you are my beloved child. I formed you in your mother's womb. I've known every moment of your life, even the ones spent serving my enemy. And I have never stopped loving you. Not for 1 second. Dawn, something broke inside me. Or maybe something was finally put back together. 20 years of darkness, 20 years of lies, 20 years of believing I was beyond redemption. It all shattered in the light of that one truth. I was loved. I am loved. And that changes everything. Jesus stood pulling me to my feet. The enemy has already lost, Marcus. My victory is complete. The cross settled this battle 2,000 years ago. All that remains is for my children to wake up and remember who they are. He smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds I'd lived under for so long I'd forgotten what light looked like. Then his expression shifted, purposeful, intentional. It's time for you to go back now. You have work to do. What kind of work? Tell them the truth, expose the playbook, remind my children who they really are. And then in an instant I was back in the hospital bed, back in my broken body. But I wasn't the same Marcus Ashford who'd flatlined on that operating table. I died as a man enslaved by darkness and lies. I came back as a son of God who knew the truth. The next few weeks were a blur of decisions that would have seemed insane to my old life. I left the Illuminati not easy, not safe, but non-negotiable. I walked away from research that had defined my career. I began studying the Bible with the same intensity I'd once devoted to their secret texts. And I discovered something extraordinary. Every lie the enemy had told me had a corresponding truth in Scripture. Every instruction in the demonic playbook had a divine counter-truth that shattered it completely. The people who knew me were shocked. Some thought I'd had a mental breakdown. Others assumed the near-death experience had damaged my brain. But I didn't care. I'd seen both sides now. I'd served the kingdom of darkness and tasted the kingdom of light, and there was no comparison. I'm telling you this today, not as a cautious academic hedging his bets with maybe and possibly. I'm telling you this as someone who lived on both sides of the spiritual war that's raging right now. I spent 15 years serving the Illuminati's agenda without realizing I was deploying these exact instructions against humanity. And now that Jesus has opened my eyes, I see them everywhere in your workplace, in your social media feed, in the voices telling you you're not enough. Those 7 instructions I saw, they're not theoretical. They're not symbolic. They are being deployed against you right this second. You're being told your intellect is superior to spiritual wisdom. That's instruction 1, the same trap I fell into. You're being isolated from authentic community through elitism, shame, or busyness. That's instruction 2, how they separated me from everyone who loved me. You're being fed a steady diet of hopelessness, convinced your mistakes are unforgivable. That's instruction 3, the lie that kept me enslaved for 20 years. You're being convinced that success and wealth define your worth. That's instruction 4, what I worshipped while my soul withered. You're being told truth is relative and morality is fluid. That's instruction 5, how they erased my ability to recognize evil. You're being drowned in distractions that keep you from ever sitting quietly with God. That's instruction 6, the noise that prevented me from hearing his voice. And above all, you're being told you're just a cosmic accident with no divine purpose. That's instruction 7, the master lie that keeps everything else in place. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. You can recognize these tactics now. You can see the manipulation. You can call it out. You can choose differently. You don't have to fall for the lies anymore. Because Jesus is calling you right now, in this moment, to remember who you really are. You're not a slave to these systems. You're not powerless. You're not forgotten or insignificant or doomed. You are deeply, eternally, unconditionally loved by the God who spoke galaxies into existence. You are made in his image. You are called to divine purpose. You are destined for glory that makes every earthly achievement look like dust. And the enemy is terrified that you might actually believe it. I don't know who needed to hear this today, but if this testimony resonated with something deep in your spirit, if you felt that quickening inside that says, this is truth, then you're part of the remnant. You're one of the ones who can see through the deception. You're being called to wake up and remember. And if you recognized even one of these instructions operating in your own life, if you saw yourself in my story, in my pride, in my isolation, in my despair, then Jesus is speaking directly to you right now. He didn't bring you to this message by accident. So here's what I'm asking you to do, not as a favor to me, but as an act of spiritual warfare. If someone you love is caught in one of these 7 traps, share this message with them. They might think it's conspiracy theory. They might dismiss it as religious extremism. But somewhere in their spirit, a seed of truth will be planted. And the enemy can't stop what God chooses to grow. Comment below and tell me which instruction you recognized operating in your own life. Which lie you've been believing. Which tactic you're ready to stand against. Because when we expose these strategies in community, we break their power. When we name the lies together, they lose their grip. Because here's the final truth I want to leave you with, the one that still brings me to tears every time I think about it. The enemy's playbook has been exposed. His tactics are visible. His lies are crumbling, and Jesus has already won. I walked through that revelation 8 minutes at a time, watching each demonic instruction unravel in the light of divine truth. But you don't need a near-death experience to access that same freedom. You don't need to join and escape a secret society to understand the battlefield. Jesus gave me this vision so you could see clearly right now exactly where the enemy is attacking and exactly how to stand firm. Every single thing the enemy throws at you has been defeated at the cross. Every lie has been answered with truth. Every chain has been broken. Every weapon has been disarmed. All you have to do is remember who you are. You are loved. You are chosen. You are free. And that terrifies the darkness more than anything else ever could. I spent 15 years in the Illuminati, believing I was enlightened while living in darkness. But 8 minutes with Jesus shattered every lie and revealed the one truth that changes everything. You are not your failures, not your circumstances, not the voice in your head telling you you're not enough. You are a beloved child of God, and that identity cannot be stolen, diminished, or destroyed. Remember that today. Remember it tomorrow. And never, ever forget it again.